Okay, so what we're dealing with is a procedure called LEM, and we're going to be doing the code within the procedure. Do note that there is a variable, a global variable in the main code called overload, and it's a boolean. We're going to keep that in mind. So we've got two variables, status, boolean, landed, integer, and these are local variables. But we don't need to do anything with that in a flowchart. But what we do need to do is overload needs to equal false and landed also equals false. So if I reveal that in the flowchart, whoa, easy tiger, there you go. So you can do it like that, or you can do it with an arrow. So it could be overload, arrow, false. But in a flowchart, this is the preferred way of doing it, by saying set. So it'll be like set score to 9, set lights to 3. Nice and simple. The next bit is in a loop. So the condition of the loop is whilst landed is false, we're then going to run this function. We know it's a function because status will equal sample being called. So it's going to return to status. So, is landed equal false, or does landed equal false? If yes, so if it does equal false, we're then going to run this function. If it doesn't equal false, there's nothing after the loop, so that's where we end. We end here, because there's nothing after this loop, so if it doesn't equal false, the loop finishes, nothing else happens. We're then going to do this if statement, if status equals true, and then we're going to run this function called sub a, we're going to pass into it 42 and return to landed. So, if status equal true, if yes, so if true, we're then going to call this function. If false, we're then going to run this function called sub b. We're going to pass into it 37 and in this one 42. Okay, we're then going to do another if statement, but this if statement's only going to run if this else happens, so it needs to go on this side where my mouse is, on this right hand side. So we're going to do another if statement there, watch. If overload equals true, and that overload is that global variable up here, then call display alarm 1202. So that's what we're going to do here. We're going to write call display alarm 1202. Notice the difference between how we call a procedure and how we call a function. It doesn't matter if you got it slightly wrong in terms of you actually did it with the arrows. Every time we use an arrow to assign a value to a variable, so like I said before, like if it was overload equals false, or landed equals false, or score equals 9, we write set. In this case, landed equals sub A42, or where's the other one? Status equals sample, where is returned from sample. But when we call a procedure, we write call, the name of the procedure, and then the value we're going to send, the parameter we're going to send to it, which is alarm 1202. So we're going to call this procedure called display alarm 1202, and then it's going to loop whether it's no or yes. So if you look at this if statement, once this if has happened, it's going to go back to the while loop. If this if doesn't happen, so let's imagine overload is false, it'll still go back to the top of a while loop, which goes all the way back up here. Okay, a couple of things. Number one, we don't care what sub A does, we don't care what sub B does, we don't care what display does, these procedures and functions. All we know that is that in this procedure called LEM, these things happen. That is what we're designing.